Well, thank you to the organizers for having me here. It's great to be here with all of you and talk about an upcoming heat pump water heater incentive program and the new load shifting requirements that come along with those incentives. My name's Emily. I work at Energy Solutions, which is the implementer for the new SCHIP heat pump water heater program, along with a team of partners, Association for Energy Affordability, Frontier Energy, Ecotope, Recurve, and Energy Outlet. And we also implement Tech Clean California with an even larger team of partners. And you see these two program names in the tech branding because the new SCHIP heat pump water heater incentives will be implemented through Tech Clean California, and I'll go over that soon. So first, I'll give you a quick overview of the new program, and then we'll dive into heat pump water heaters and load shifting details, and then a little bit more on the related requirements for this new program. Okay, so through the SCHIP, or Self-Generation Incentive Program proceeding, we have $80.2 million in additional funding for heat pump water heaters. And incentives are going to launch at the end of October, very exciting, and are planned to run through the end of 2025 as supplies last. Incentives are paid to contractors as a key market actor who has the ability to influence customer choice, and they pass those incentives through to the customer. It's for retrofit projects, and it's available statewide for residential customers and a smaller budget for non-residential customers. And it has new load shifting requirements. So customers receiving the incentives have to enroll in a demand response program and be on a time of use rate. And contractors, while they're doing the installations, have to set the heat pump water heaters up to shift load off of peak hours. For that one, for the unitary equipment, or basically the heat pump water heaters that are installed in dwelling units as opposed to central systems, there's a requirement that the heat pump water heaters are approved by the California Energy Commission as having the ability to follow a time of use rate. However, that is not a default setting, and so that's why contractors need to set that up during the installation and commissioning process. And these new load shifting requirements are why I'm here today at this forum to talk with you, so we'll spend a lot of time on that. A little bit of background: the SCHIP heat pump water heater program is a new branch off of the Self-Generation Incentive Program, and SCHIP has a long history. It was established in 2001 in response to Assembly Bill 970, which called for incentives for technologies that help reduce peak energy demand. And historically, SCHIP has incentivized solar and a little bit later battery technologies as well. And in 2022, the CPUC created this new program, the SCHIP heat pump water heater program, and defined the rules for that program. And this funding is available for heat pump water heaters in the first place because of their ability to act as a battery with their thermal energy storage, being able to shift energy usage away from peak periods, which is what the Public Utilities Code requires in order for SCHIP to provide incentives. So as I mentioned, the new SCHIP incentives are being implemented through the Tech Clean California program. It's California's market transformation program for clean space and water heating. The new SCHIP heat pump water heater incentives will be fully branded as Tech Clean California. We'll be communicating them as new tech heat pump water heater incentives with new requirements. And one main goal is to simplify the experience for contractors and customers. We don't want them to have to keep track of these different funding sources or feel like there's a whole new program that they have to learn. When Tech Clean California first launched at the end of 2021, it included incentives for heat pump HVAC as well as heat pump water heating. So the market is already familiar with Tech being the source of statewide heat pump water heater incentives. And one great thing that this combined approach allows us to do is some gap filling for heat pump water heater projects that don't meet all of the requirements for the SCHIP heat pump water heater funding. So Tech has a smaller set aside of budget for heat pump water heaters. The SCHIP heat pump water heater budget will fund the vast majority of heat pump water heater installations, but For customers, for example, who are outside of IOU territories or don't have a time of use rate or DR program available to them, tech will actually fund those projects. So all that customers and contractors need to know is that the incentives are available statewide. And the rules are the same for all projects, regardless of the funding source, whether that be tech funding or SCHIP heat pump water heater funding. The exception, of course, is that customers without a DR or TOU program available to them don't need to enroll in one, and they can still get their project funded. So just a quick look at the incentives. The main thing to note is that these incentives are higher than ever before, higher than the first round of tech funding. And this is designed to really help contractors adapt and be successful with the new DR and load shifting requirements. You can see the baseline incentive amounts in that first column, and then there's the opportunity to earn additional higher incentives. And for both of the residential categories, the unitary and the central, there are higher amounts for equity customers. Okay, so the new load shifting requirements are very positive, and now we'll talk a little bit about why that's important and why heat pump water heaters are very well suited for load shifting. Start with some quick terminologies. Demand response just means a temporary change in energy usage, and demand response programs help facilitate that. The relevant program requirement is, of course, customers have to enroll in a demand response program. And there are a variety of demand response program options, and those programs represent a variety of different ways that energy can be changed and optimized. Load shifting is a specific type of demand response, and it means that energy is shifted out of one time into another. And we're really talking about energy usage being moved out of peak hours. In California, that's in the evening, and into the middle of the day instead. And the relevant program requirements are that the heat pump water heater needs to be installed in a way that it's automatically doing load shifting, and also the customers have to be on a time of use rate. These off-peak and peak hours are reflected in time of use rates. So when the heat pump water heater is installed to shift load off of peak hours, customers on time of use rates pay less for electricity than they would without their heat pump water heater being optimized in that way. And for customers and for the grid scale, it's especially important for our program to focus on this as we're converting more and more customers away from gas water heating technology to electric water heating technology. Even though heat pump water heaters are very efficient, we're still adding electric load to the grid. And so we want to make sure that we're minimizing that, especially during the peak hours when it really counts. And heat pump water heaters are very good at doing this. They are load shifting superstars. This slide was adapted from a contractor training. So heat pump water heaters, especially with mixing valves installed, which is a program requirement as well, can store thermal energy by preheating water during the middle of the day and avoiding usage during those evening peak hours. And with a heat pump water heater, load shifting has been shown to be able to completely or almost completely eliminate on-peak usage, which can be about 500 watts when using the heat pump compressor, or it can be more for a hybrid heat pump water heater when it's using the electric resistance element. So heat pump water heaters have a lot of control features. One of those is the ability to follow a local time of use rate. For this, the setup is simple via the manufacturer app. It's something that the contractor can do in just a minute or two during their normal kind of setup and commissioning process. So that's a requirement in order to get the incentive. And then heat pump water heaters that have internet connectivity or a connectivity port can also participate in smart load shifting programs to further optimize the water heater based on utility signals. And as I mentioned, as customers convert from gas to electric water heating, this type of load shifting keeps this new electric load off peak, contributing to a more reliable grid and helping prevent blackouts and brownouts. And not only does this help with reliability at a grid scale, but it's also useful to note at the customer level that customers with heat pump water heaters will still have some amount of hot water if the power goes out. Since heat pump water heaters have a large tank, they'll still have many gallons of hot water to use even when the water heater is not actively heating. And heat pump water heaters have very minimal heat loss, and the water in the tank stays very well stratified so that customers still have hot water even as cold water is going in to replenish the tank. And just to give you an idea, common tank sizes are 50 gallons, 65, and 80 gallons. So that's a lot of hot water. And if a customer has solar, they can use that to charge up their water heater just like they would a battery, and use that to create a resilient household as well. As I mentioned, the program requires thermostatic mixing valves, which that allows the tank to be heated up even higher, for example, up to 140 degrees. And then the mixing valve, as the water is going out of the water heater, mixes in cold water to bring it down to a non-scalding temperature. So customers who choose to heat the water in their tank to a higher set point would have even more gallons of hot water available to them. Okay, some quick visuals of the grid and a load shifting heat pump water heater. On the left, we can see the demand profile on the whole grid on a typical day. The light blue shows the total demand, and the dark blue shows net demand minus solar and wind energy. And you can see the evening ramp up in that net demand as solar drops off and people come home and start using electricity. And then over on the right side with the heat pump water heater, the black line shows what the heat pump water heater's electricity consumption would look like without load shifting. And the red line is with load shifting. And you can see it's dramatically reducing its usage during the time of use peak hours. That's the green shaded area. And you can see those little blue brackets I added on the bottom of both of those graphs. When the overall grid is experiencing a ramp up in usage, that's the same time that the heat pump water heater can be optimized to greatly reduce its load. Okay, so just quickly, a few more details about what's being asked of the customer and contractors for these new demand response and load time of use requirements. So our program has a special opportunity in that contractors are having a direct touch point with customers right as they're about to get a huge discount on a new piece of technology, which is a great way to motivate them to become better grid citizens and take these additional steps, and also to be able to explain to the customers why that's good for them. So time of use, this is for single residence and small business projects, and the customer, all they really have to do is acknowledge this requirement on the terms and conditions, which they already have to assign. They'll be able to check a box saying that their utility can put them on a time of use rate if they're not already on one. They can select a specific rate if they'd like to. And then on the back end, we do all the work. We send their data over to the utilities, and the utilities either say, yep, this customer is already enrolled, or okay, we're putting them on a time of use rate. For DR, there's a little bit more of an active role required. We can't facilitate that on the back end. But similarly, the customer will acknowledge it on the terms and conditions that that is a requirement for receiving their incentives, and they will have to actively enroll in any of the qualifying demand response options. There's a lot of options. For example, customers can sign up for a whole home behavioral type program where they're just getting emails or texts when they're supposed to reduce their usage, or they could sign up for a program that connects directly to their water heater or another end-use technology like a smart thermostat. And we'll have a list of all the qualifying demand response programs, and we're working with contractors actively to make sure we provide them with all of the resources that they need to help facilitate this successfully. So that's the end. I know I breezed through that, but you can contact this email address if you have any more questions. And I included a few links for contractors and customers to get involved. And there's our program team. So thank you so much for having me.